Hold on, I'm gonna pause the recording. All right, welcome everybody. This is our November community conversations. We do this every month. This is every third Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock, where we sit down and chat with different community partners, community leaders, and talk about what is going on locally and nationally, how you can get involved, how you can take action, and just we talk about what's happening and get real with it. So, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We do post these on YouTube, BLM New Hampshire's YouTube channel. So you can see this one within 48 hours and also all of our past ones from the past year. You can see those on YouTube as well. But tonight I'm excited. We have the pleasure of sitting down with Ophelia, who is also a BLM New Hampshire board member, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about your day job and all the things that you're doing in the community. So I am going to let you introduce yourself and tell the world who you are.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining. My name is Ophelia Burnett. And when you said my day job, so like, what do I do at night? I work with BLM at night.
Yeah, pretty much. We won't talk
Okay.
about that, what you do at night.
So, yes, my name is Ophelia Burnett, and I am the Healing Justice Program Associate with a nonprofit of American Friends Service Committee. And a lot of the work that I do is within the criminal legal system. I work on a lot of criminal justice reform. I am justice impacted, so a lot of the work that I do is with formerly and currently incarcerated individuals. I just launched a reentry program for women coming home from incarceration this past August. As Tanisha just said, I'm on the board of BLM New Hampshire, and I'm also on the board of New Hampshire Legal Assistance. So yeah, that's who I am.
Busy bee. Tell us, for those who might not know, tell us about American Friends, SC, and what you guys do, what's the org about, and all of that.
Yeah, so we do a lot of social justice work. My particular area, like I said, is criminal justice work. We also work on immigration and things like that. And so a lot of the practices that we do is we focus on people first, which makes us a little different from a lot of organizations. And we work on their stories and make sure that it's about the people first in the community and creating spaces where healing can happen and lifting up these leaders, because a lot of organizations, they always want to step in and fix the problems for people. But AFSC, we like to walk alongside them and build trust and share power and make sure that it's a long-term process where we're making sure it's something that is long-term and not something that just happens right there and then. And making sure that we push these leaders forward and being really engaged into the policies and no quick fixes and making sure we're doing a lot of policy changes. And so we really address a lot of issues as far as like trauma, listening to people, and yeah, like I said, just really making a lot of leaders into the community.
So you mentioned how you work with incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. Why that area of focus?
So there's a little backstory behind that. Like I mentioned, I was formerly incarcerated myself. And so for a very long time after I was released from the New Hampshire State Prison for Women, I couldn't find any work for about 10, 15 years. As you can imagine, after being released, it was hard for me to find any work. And one day I was asked by someone that was running for office if I can tell my story at the State House. And I was really scared, but I decided to do it. And once I told my story, a lot of different organizations were reaching out to me to work with them, and that's how I got in contact with AFSC and asked me if I can work with them. They were starting a new position for someone that's had lived experience. And to me, I thought it was God because, like I said, for a very long time, for a decade, I couldn't find any work. And so I said, wow, for a very long time, people has been closing doors on me for
Mm,
my past. And here we are, this organization is asking me to work with them because of my past. So that's how I got into doing this work. And so just using my lived experience, like I said before, this organization uses people's lived experience to really be into the community and work with others with that same experience. And so I just been using what I've been through to help others and push them forward to be leaders themselves.
mm. One of the things you said was, your lived experience in this role. Why is that so important for organizations and people to understand that those with lived experience are most valuable?
I would say because, in order for you to really understand a situation is you'd have to actually walk it, live it, be it, breathe it. People can read about someone being incarcerated, but they can't actually understand it unless you've actually lived it.
Mm,
So with me having that lived experience, I can go out and talk to people and hear their voices and really can understand and relate to them. Instead of someone else that said, oh yeah, I can really hear you, I understand, but unless you've really been through it and actually walked the walk, you won't really understand what someone else is experiencing and feeling, unless you've actually been through it like the next person has.
yeah. It's really a difference of when we talk about empathy and understanding. Um, it's a deeper level of empathy when you have gone through something to be able to help someone get through it. It also is a relationship builder and a trust opener, right? Because a lot of times when we work in the field of mental health and social work, the one barrier we have is, we're going and this is my former career, but we go into people's homes and we're like, I can help you and I can give you all these things. And they look at us like, but you never lived this life. You don't
Right.
know what I really need. I don't need you coming in judging me. So I really wish.
I don't want to cut you off, Tanisha.
Go
I'm so
ahead.
sorry. I literally was going to bring up a situation when I first came home and I was reaching out to these different organizations for mental health services. And they would say, yeah, we're going to get back to you. And I'm like, are you really going to get back to me? And it took me almost 8 months before someone literally got back to me. Had it been someone, which I know now there's people that have my same lived experience that are now working at the mental health center. But had it been someone that was on the other line that had the same experience as I had, they would understand, like, okay, this woman, she just got out a few weeks ago, a couple months ago. We know how much of a dire need it is for her to get into counseling. Let's make sure that she gets in. But because it's just someone that, they're doing their 9 to 5, they're just answering the phone calls, they don't understand how important it was for me to get into counseling. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, so we use this term healing justice. We use it a lot, especially when it comes to, I'll say the woke world and how we maneuver around things. And I know that AFSC has its approach to healing justice as well. So talk a little bit about what healing justice is compared to like traditional methods of let's just get you into a job and keep it moving and let's just make you acclimated back into society. So talk about that.
So, for AFSC, healing justice in this context is to create spaces where we can heal from the trauma and the harm that people have experienced, and also at the same time addressing the root causes that the harm has caused in the first place.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of organizations where they're like, okay, we're going to create these spaces, we're going to talk about it, but they're not actually addressing the root causes to
Mhm.
why someone went out and, you know, assaulted someone or why they went out and broke into someone's car. So you can create these spaces, but are you actually addressing them? And that's what healing justice to AFSC means. Like we're actually addressing these systemic barriers and addressing them so that people are less likely to go back out and create harm again or creating a crime that they did before that a lot of other people or spaces don't do. So just really getting to those root causes.
Do you think that if you don't address that, right? If you don't address the root causes, do we think that we're just creating more harm? I'm completely off script, so I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Um, I feel like it's just getting to the base of things and not really, it's just sugarcoating things.
Mhm,
I feel like that's just like with the carceral system. You know, the system is always just focusing on when someone does something bad, let's punish them. But
mhm,
that's not fixing anything. It's actually creating more harm on the person. And to kind of actually answer your question, yeah, I think that it does because when you incarcerate someone, it does create more harm. They say that incarceration makes our community more safer, and it actually doesn't. There's studies that show that it doesn't make our community safer because it's literally taking someone, putting them in a box, and
mhm,
just leaving them there. They call these places, Department of Corrections, but it's not correcting anything. So
mhm,
these places don't have any kind of programs that's helping them with any kind of restorative practices. So if we're
mhm.
not getting to those root causes, I do feel like it is causing more harm on the individual and our community.
You mentioned a buzzword, or what some may call a buzzword, restorative practices. And we talk about that in a lot of different avenues, right? We talk about restorative practices when it comes to incarceration, and it comes to consequences, when it comes to school, and children. What does restorative practices mean in this element, though? Like, what does that look like?
So to me, and in this context, it's really just listening to those voices, just
Mhm,
having that creative space, allowing people to feel vulnerable, allowing people to feel safe, and just creating those spaces for people to let down those walls and just hearing people out. So many people have so many walls up, and because of all the trauma and harm that they've experienced, they have so many things that they're being challenged with and face all the time that they're holding on to so much. So
Yeah.
restorative justice is really just allowing someone to let things go, bring their walls down, and just allowing them to feel vulnerable and have different practices to be able to do that. And you
Hmm.
want to be able to not just allow someone to let it all out and not know what to do with it. So you want to make sure that you do it in the correct way so someone's just not letting out all their anger or feelings and not having anywhere to put it. So just really allowing someone to let out whatever they're going through and their experiences. And yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go a little bit into, as we're talking about restorative practices from your perspective, because there is a lot of stigma, a lot of narratives about um, incarcerated women and men, what happens when they come out and the lives that we lead, right? Some of it is based in truth, some of it's not, and some is just we saw this in a movie, and so this is what we think is happening, right? So, what are the most urgent needs of women? And I'll focus on women because I know that's what you work with. Um, Returning home. What does it look like? Like, what happens?
Um, so the urgent needs, and I'll say like for women is housing, employment, community support. And it's really tough because the two things that you need once you come home from incarceration is employment and housing. And
Mhm,
those are the two crucial things that you need. But once you are incarcerated and you get out, you're stamped with that stigma of being a felon. So you already have that double X on your back. So really having that support system of, and I really feel like I don't even understand why they don't already have those things in place for people when they get out, but the system is set up to make people fail. That's why our recidivism rate is so high in New Hampshire,
mhm,
because they don't have those things in place for people. And this is not a pitch from my reentry program, but that's why I created this reentry program to meet people at the door so that once they get out, the last thing they want to think about is, where am I going to go for housing? Where can I find support for a job? Where can I find support for substance use disorder counseling?
mhm,
Meeting them at the door and giving that to them in a package pretty much right in their hand. that
Mhm.
they just need to worry about living and being home and being with their family. So really having that support once they get out is really important. So housing, mental health services, a job, and things like that is very crucial once they come home.
So you talked a little bit about the barriers that, incarcerated folks face. So what does that look like when we talk about trauma and that family separation and those systemic barriers? How does it really shape those experiences and what does it do to women re-entering their community?
So a lot of women, they face or have experienced violence, trauma, and harm before incarceration. So going into incarceration is already a trauma experience in itself. So
Mm-hmm.
having to deal with that and then getting out, or just once they get in, being separated from their families, separated from their loved ones, their kids, that just adds on to everything else. So once they get out, they have all of that that they have to deal with, and then having to reintegrate back into the community. Oh my gosh, I can
Mm-hmm.
only like imagine, and I can even speak from my experience. I almost lost my mind. Thank God I had, my family support once I came home because like I said, I tried to call the mental health center and I couldn't get the support, but it's a struggle. Being incarcerated in itself is a lot, so it does a lot on someone.
Mm-hmm.
It it does a lot on someone. So
Mm-hmm.
really having a strong support system um is really important because there is so many challenges you face while you're incarcerated and while you're reintegrating back into the community. So it does a lot on someone, especially women.
What do you say to those folks who have those misconceptions, who have those narratives and stories, the whole do the crime, do the time, all those pieces, and that's what prison is for. And if you didn't want to be in prison in the box and this and that, shouldn't have did this, or my tax dollars are paying, for your meals and your bed. What do you say to all of that?
So I say to that is because I'm formerly incarcerated, we are people first. Um,
Mm,
People assume that formerly incarcerated people they're broken, that they're unmotivated, that they're bad people, they're dangerous, and they want to get out and they don't want to do anything. But honestly, they're some of the most motivated people. They because when they get out, that's all they want to do is get back to their lives and things like that. So, um, what I want to say to people is have compassion, actually take the time to actually know the person, listen to their stories, create like spaces so that these people can feel space, feel safe to share their stories.
mm,
And then, once they feel safe to share their stories, I think the stigma will kind of come down. And then you'll be able to see the vulnerability in these people. And you'll be able to see the true person that they are. You'll be able to see the leader. You'll be able to see the mother. You'll be able to see the daughter in these people. And then people will be able to get away from those stereotypes of, formerly incarcerated people and you'll be able to understand them more.
So if you had to say, what does a community accountability look like besides like giving people, the option to feel the ability to feel safe, having that empathy and realizing that they're people first. As a community, though, what do we need to do differently and better?
Kind of like what I said before, just walking with them, showing some compassion, and not just from a distance, actually walking with them, getting to know who they are as a person, that they are not the biggest mistake that they made, and they are people first. So just walking with them and being a support system for them and not from a distance like, oh my God, they're bad people, they have the hibby jibbies, oh my God, I don't want to catch it. No,
Hmm.
you know
Yeah. So when we think about immediate community needs, and I'm going to assume, and it could be a wrong assumption, that AFSC is addressing immediate community needs. what is the long-term structural change that we need to be thinking about when it comes to this?
When you say like the long term, like structural change, like what do you mean by that? Sorry.
If we're talking about system changed, right? If we're talking about laws or, policies, or if we wanted to go to the state house and fight for this, what should we be fighting for when it comes to this? Because I know you're at the state house a lot sometimes, and
Yeah.
and so like, what are you fighting for at the state house?
Um, I'm trying to see what's the best way to say this. For not just to not just to talk about it, but we also need to make systemic changes in a sense of like moving away from punishment and punitive and work into more of like a restorative healing world, and like investing more into reentry programs, into programming, into trauma-informed spaces and things like that, so that people can get the support that they need once they are released, or so people are not committing crimes and hurting other people. They always say that all these crimes and things like that happen in these low poverty communities and stuff like that. And I always say no. I think it happens in these low invested communities. So invest more into communities instead of in these prisons and things like that. So invest more in people. So I think really doing policies and advocacy around that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doing, because like I said before, a lot of people say, hey, I want to make a change, but we can do all these events and like talk about it. But if we're not really doing it systemically and really diving deep into
Mm-hmm.
systemic changes, then we're not really doing anything.
Yes. You said it all. I agree, and I think we forget that when people's basic human needs are not met, it opens the door to many different choices. Choices that you may or may not agree with. And basic needs includes love, includes, home, includes
Mm.
food, includes care, right? And we need to remember that this is not just an issue that's going to be solved by giving, we got to fight this from the top down, and change the whole system. But I won't even get on that target. What I do want to get into, though, and real quick before I change the subject, folks, if you have questions and comments, the chat may be disabled, but there is on the bottom of your screen, it will say Q&A. Feel free to post a question there, and I will do my best to look for it, and answer the question. Don't raise your hand, but put the actual question in the Q&A section, and I will make sure we get it answered. But we do have a question. Um, can you share your advocacy story about tampons? Also, do you think people should support policies like ban the box that requires you to disclose your time in jail on a housing or employment application? And what about, wow, this person has a lot of questions. And what about policies that profile by race?
Wow, and those are really good questions. Thank you for asking. So, that's why I love the Women's Foundation. Someone had reached out to me a couple years ago about their efforts to mandate feminine hygiene products in the prisons. And I was like, wow, I can't even believe you even thought about that. Like, what made you even think about this? And this woman's not even someone that's been incarcerated. And to think that that's something that we even have to talk about in this day and age. And so it was myself, someone from the Women's Foundation, some efforts from a few senators. We all came together, and actually Helen Hanks, who was the commissioner at that time, We all came together. We might not all be on the same side, but when it comes to something like this that we think is very important, we all came together and worked together and we got the bill passed that you no longer have to pay for feminine hygiene products in the prison. And what I thought was really good about that, because I've seen when I was in incarcerated, there was women that would have to ask for their feminine hygiene products, and a lot of men are the ones that are COs in the prison or in
Mhm.
the jail. Do you know how embarrassing that is when a woman's like, "Hi, can I get a tampon?" And the CO's like, what's that? Is that the stick? Is it the pad? Or, and then if the CO doesn't like you, he'll say, "Yes, I'll go get you one," and then never comes back. And then so the woman has to deal with menstruating through her clothes and having to use clothes. And I've seen that happen so many times. So that was a really good bill that passed, and I was happy that we got that done. So that was my efforts on that. As far as ban the box,
Mhm.
that is something that I've been wanting to work on because, you know, when you get out of incarceration, your two biggest things is to get a job and to find housing. But it's like a catch 22. How are we going to find housing and, you know, employment when we have to check the box and, you know, because we're now a felon. So how is that going to be possible for us? There was some efforts, I think it was in 2018 or 19, that jobs that are, I think it's public jobs are not supposed to have the box on their applications, but a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of these sectors don't know that they're not supposed to have it on their applications.
Mhm.
So when I found out about this like a year or two ago, I'm like, so when bills like this are passed, how does everybody know, like, okay, this has passed, we need to start reinforcing it and stuff like that? Because certain jobs are still keeping the box
Mhm.
on their applications and they're not supposed to. So that's something that I do want to work on coming up soon. But that's
Mhm.
why we need to build people, come together, you know, so we can start talking about these things. That's why I'm glad, Tanisha, that you have these podcasts and these conversations so people can know, so that we can come together. A lot of people don't know that
Right.
they have the rights to go to the state house when they are passing laws or they don't want to
Mhm.
pass something. People can go to the state house, they can testify, they can use their voice and be a part of laws being passed or not. So, but yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be worked on. And as far as the racial profiling, that is another bill that they have been trying to get passed. But of
Mhm.
course, they have done everything under the sun not to get that bill passed because it will show that when they're pulling people over, most of the time it's someone of color. And I
Mhm.
think what they were trying to say, like, and I don't have my ID in front of me, maybe someone could look, but on our IDs right now, Tanisha, does it say if like our race on our ID, like if it says if we're
Oh,
black, white, or anything like that? I think
I
they were
have to
trying
look.
to change it,
Mhm.
would say what your race is, because they're trying to figure out a system how they can keep track of the race of the person that they pulled over, but they said that they,
New Hampshire is horrible. New Hampshire doesn't barely, if any, tracks any data on any type of statistics for racial profiling. And this has been a thing between BIPOC organizations and civil justice organizations for a long time. It got more attention after George Floyd, and everyone was woke. So, but we realized for a few years, because we've done a few panels with police chiefs and all of that, they're not capturing that data. So when we asked New Hampshire, what's your stats of pulling over people of color versus other, and they'd be like, we don't know. We don't have that data. We're not
of
tracking
course.
it. And not really making good effort to do that. But this has been a heavy conversation for a long time in this state. It may be something that we should take up and bring back to the forefront. So, good on that question to remind us that these are some of the advocacy pieces we need to be working on. So, I want to um, change to another amazing thing that you are working on. Maybe it's not amazing because we really shouldn't have to be doing this, but You work on the New Hampshire slavery abolitionist bill. And it's so funny. We talked about this, I want to say like a year, maybe 2 years ago. And you came to me with this, and I said, wait, what? I said,
Yeah.
No, hun, slavery has been abolished." And you said, right, but there's a loophole. And I had to go back. And I remember this is when we first connected. And I
Yeah.
think I texted all of BLM and I said, did y'all know that there was this loophole in the whole slavery abolished bill? And so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Wisdom from all the things. Like, give me everything. Give her
Yes,
everything, I
yes,
should say.
yes, yes. Let's talk about it.
Mhm,
So, I was like, when I got, got word of it too, I was just like, oh my gosh. So, 85% of US citizens do not realize that slavery is still legal to this day.
mhm,
Why? Because of the loophole that is in the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution.
mhm,
So, if we know, or for those who don't know, in the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution, it says slavery has been abolished except if you've been convicted of a crime. So, if you look at that, it's saying, yeah, we've abolished slavery, but if you've been convicted of a crime, and
mhm,
you're in prison, you're pretty much a slave.
mhm.
So that's the land of the law. That's the US Constitution. In each state has their own constitution. So if your state does not have any slavery language in your constitution, then your constitution defaults to the exact language of the 13th Amendment. In New Hampshire, because there was no slavery language in our constitution in New Hampshire, it defaulted to the exact language of the 13th Amendment. So last year, when I reached out to you,
Mhm,
we were having the efforts of, in the Constitution of New Hampshire, we wanted it to say, slavery or involuntary servitude is prohibited in the state of New Hampshire. Once New Hampshire got wind of that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what? This is
mhm,
crazy." We had a unanimous vote in the committee. We got 20-0. Boom, that was good. Then we went to the full house where we all know that we have like 400 and I don't know,
mhm,
seven, whatever it is. I was supposed to get a 65% vote, so I needed about 216
mhm,
people to get it passed in the full house. We had 366 people said, yes, we need to get rid of this. There were still 5 people that said, no, we need to keep this. Like, and the good thing about New Hampshire, you get to see the roll call and see who
You
said,
do.
no, we need to keep
Yeah.
this.
Mhm,
When we got to the Senate, that was around the last steps that we needed to take. We have about 24 senators. When we got to the Senate, it was a split down the middle. The 10 Democrats said, yes, let's get rid of it. And the 12 Republicans said, no, we're keeping this. And so, um, where we were having challenges with the bill, people were saying, well, we don't have slavery here in New Hampshire. We don't have any chain gangs. And what is slavery and involuntary servitude? They were asking us for the definition. It's like, doesn't matter.
mhm,
Slavery is slavery, and we need to just get rid of it, point blank, period.
mhm,
So that's what's going on. Is getting rid of it. Because of the loophole in the Constitution, they set it up that way. They knew from way back when that this would be carried on, to our days. And that's why, as we were talking about the racial profiling, when they're pulling people over, because they're like, well, how does that work on the outside? How does that work on the outside? It's not
mhm,
just for in the prisons, it's for outside too, because if they're saying once you're convicted, you're a slave. So that means when you're driving and you're not doing anything, and the officer says, hey, pull over, sir, I can smell weed in your car. No, you don't.
mhm,
Yes, I can. Okay. Oh, now you're getting loud with me. Okay. Now you're arrested. Now you're convicted, and now you're a slave. So,
mhm. Well, and we're also seeing this on a national level with the conversations that Trump and everyone else has been bringing into of bringing back the, prison workforce. Um, you
oh, I had to sip some water.
listen.
Oh my God.
It has been a main topic of conversation for the past year or
Now,
two of, are we going to bring back the prison workforce? And what's that going to look like, and why can't prisoners work? They're in prison, and we're spending our tax dollars on them so they could at least work and do what we need to get done, the work that maybe others aren't doing, or maybe the ones that we deported illegally and now need that work being done. And so this has been a controversial topic across the nation. And from what I understand, I remember you telling me all states don't have this language, right?
No,
Mm,
no. So it just started and I could be wrong. So I think right now only about 8 to 9 states has already abolished slavery in their state.
mhm,
So in order for us to get rid of the loophole altogether across the country through the Constitution, 32 states would have to amend their Constitution and get rid of it in order for us to get rid of the loophole altogether.
mhm,
So like I said, about 10 states have already passed it already. And it only just started around, I think in 2000, maybe like 4 years ago, the state started catching on to this and started working on this amendment. But just to go back to what you were saying about bringing back hard labor in New Hampshire, my supervisor is going to kill me for this, and I'm going to say it. They are, this legislature, they want to bring back hard labor in New Hampshire. They even said something about, the people behind the walls, they want them shoveling out fire hydrants. Like, how
mhm,
do you even do that?
mhm,
They were saying that they were going to give it to everyone behind the walls, but now they're saying that it was going to cost too much money. So now they want it to be for murderers and people with sex charges with little kids. So, I mean, what is that? What's that going to look like? What do they want to do? Start doing chain gangs and all that? Like, we are really rolling back in times,
yeah,
and it's really depressing to see
mhm,
and hear that. And the other thing, Tanisha, the death penalty.
yes,
That is like going to be my big focus coming up for 2026 as far as advocacy and, needing a lot of support. Because if we bring back the death penalty, it's going to change a lot of things in the state. So that's another thing that they're trying to bring back. They have not executed anyone in the state of New
yep,
Hampshire since 1939.
mhm.
There's only one
One
person in
person,
the
I was
state
getting
of
ready to
New
say it. Mm-hmm.
There's only one person
One
in the
person.
state of New Hampshire that's on death row, and he's a
Hmm.
black man.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, the same time that he got charged with capital murder, really quick, there was another man who
Mm-hmm.
was white who literally um, hired two individuals to kill someone, and they
Hmm.
only gave him capital murder without giving him the death penalty. But Michael Addison, they gave him capital murder when he didn't intentionally mean to
Right.
kill the officer, but they gave him capital murder with the death penalty.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
mean,
and this just came up, this was just in the news a couple months ago, and in my terms of time, it could have been weeks, but months. But this was in the news because one, New Hampshire doesn't even have the physical capability of enacting the death penalty.
no.
So this was also brought to the current governor's desk of changing his sentence and taking the death penalty off, and she denied it, and she had for it to remain as death penalty. And everyone was saying, "Are you kidding me? Because New Hampshire can't even do this. We don't even have the capabilities in any of our prison systems. Why would we keep this when we know what this man did was not intentional, right?"
Mhm.
And because it was a cop, a police officer that was killed, this man is having extra suffering right now.
And what makes it even worse, she is the one who sentenced him. She was
Yes.
yeah,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, do you have a personal agenda with this guy, ma'am? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So are we going back to the Senate 2026 as some of the bills that are coming up? Is this back on the proposals?
As far as the slavery, the amendment to amend the Constitution for the slavery bill, that
Hmm.
one we didn't bring it back for this year because of the government makeup, like how I told you that it was half
Hmm.
Democrats, half Republicans.
Hmm.
Because of the makeup right now, we'd be setting ourselves up
Yeah.
right now. We're like, we're gonna wait till next year. We're going to have more Democrats on our side. No, we'll be setting ourselves up. So this year we have no choice but to focus all of our efforts on the death penalty bill because they are really trying to smoke this guy. Also, that just the death penalty, just bringing it back in general is just
Hmm.
inhumane.
Hmm.
We can take that money. It will cost so much money to, put this man to death when we can use that money to come up with systems like put the money towards programming and mental health centers and different things that can help people better themselves. And the death penalty has been abolished since 2019. So this man, literally it will be illegal to put this man to death. So let's take that money and put it towards things that can actually do some good in our state. So yeah, that's going to be our biggest focus for 2026. So you will be hearing from us and needing a lot of support for that coming up.
What do you say to the people that say eye for an eye?
Are you God? Who gives you the right to do that? Like, if you're saying that killing someone, unaliving someone is not right, so you think that you should go and do that? Like, who gives you that right, I just don't think it's right.
Yeah. And I, there's a lot of arguments to this, right? Because some people say, what about the extreme cases? What about those who are harming children? What about, those who are murdering multiple people or serial killers? Why shouldn't they be put to the death penalty? And I think everyone has an opinion, just like we all do. Um, but when we abolish the death penalty and we say we should not be playing God for people, right? We let the courts decide, we let a judge and a jury decide, but we should not be deciding to kill someone else. Do we still say we can't play God even when we're talking about those extreme cases? And I'm just trying to make some controversy here. I'm not saying
No, no, I love it. I'm glad you brought that up because
Mhm.
even when I talk about the prison system and how, because I'm an abolitionist, and when people ask me, so if you don't want people to go to prison, then what about the murderers and the rapists and
Mhm.
things like that? I say, these people, that goes back to getting to the root causes of why people do what they do. People aren't born murderers. People aren't born rapists. These are learned behaviors. These are things that were taught to someone or that was done to them. So that's why we go back to talking about getting to the root causes and working through that and on that, because then it will be less likely for someone to reoffend or reharm someone. I'm not saying that I condone someone unaliving someone or raping someone, but if we're really trying to get to a more just world and a loving world, it's really getting to those root causes. Putting someone in prison or putting someone to death isn't going to change anything because I'll give a good example. Someone goes out and they rape someone, you put them in prison for 5, 10, 15 years as a sitting duck and they get out. What do you think is really going to happen? Do you think that they learned anything or they're just sitting there getting more upset, you know, thinking of different ideas, meeting other people with with those criminal minds, and
Mentality.
they're
Hmm.
gonna get out and what? You think they're just gonna get out and play patty cake with someone?
Hmm.
No. So
Hmm.
really getting to those root causes is what I say, and that's my opinion. I'm not saying let's go and take a key and let everybody out, but I just
But
don't think these prisons
right.
work. They just
Well, and when we think about restoration and we think about education and repairing harm and we talk about mental health, if we're going to incarcerate folks and we're going to say this is your consequence, right? We should be doing those things for them while they're in prison, right? We should be repairing that. We should be treating their mental health. We should be addressing all those things. So if and when they do get out, they come back with the ability to rejoin society in a healthy way as a human being. Like, and that's really all this is about when we fight for social justice at all. It's about fighting for a human life to have basic human rights. That's
Yeah.
all it is, you know? Um, we go ahead. Oh, so
No,
we
I'm saying yes,
have
yes.
we have a question that someone asks is we actually have two. Can you share some examples of how you would know if you were being racially profiled, and how you would or should respond to being racially profiled to protect your freedom? I saw this question and my answer is kind of
Say, Kanisha, you can answer those.
you said that's all me. Oh, thanks. I will be honest and say my mind went in different directions when I saw this question. One is, um, my standard answer is, as any person of color, you know the rules when you get pulled over. You know what you need to do. You know how, and this is not saying that I agree with it or I condone it. I am saying if you know your tail light isn't out, if you know you weren't speeding, if you know you weren't driving all crazy on the road, if you know there's no weed in your car, all the things, right? And you know you were just driving to work and you got pulled over for being black, then you know that in your heart of hearts. And so your response should be what we've all been seeing in the world is put that video camera on, call somebody and say, I am getting pulled over right now. I need you to listen on the phone. Put that location on and share that pin drop with somebody. Um, some will tell you to fight. That's not my answer because you know what? You need to live through that incident to fight the next day.
Right.
Our Black people are getting murdered by police, and we need to acknowledge that that is happening. So, being racially profiled can lead to murder. And so, we need to realize I teach my children if you get pulled over, no sudden movements. This is not your moment to argue. You do what you need to do to come home, and then we fight. Because we see when we start fighting, we die. And we have that instant moment to want to be like, no, police officer, I'm this, I'm that. Do you know who I am? I wasn't doing anything. It doesn't lead to anything but us being killed. And so until the world changes, my suggestion is to drop that location, start the camera, FaceTime somebody, turn on TikTok Live, Facebook Live. I don't care what you got. Do all those things to protect yourself so that you can fight in a different manner. Some might agree, some might disagree with me, but that's my personal opinion. So yeah.
That was
Uh,
perfect.
I have another question, or I have another question from another panelist, another participant who wants to know how do you get involved with your organization and what you do?
I was actually just about to drop that into the chat. We have a link. We have this thing called the State House Watch. It's the newsletter. We have our first edition coming out in December, and then it comes out every week. From there, where we talk about bills that are coming up, that has to deal with immigration, criminal justice, all the good tea. So I will drop that in the chat and then you guys can keep up with us and everything that's coming up.
And if you want to connect with Ophelia directly, be sure to email info@blmnewhampshire.org and we can make sure that she gets your message and connects with you. I have all the contact deets so I can make sure that you get connected. Um, Last question, as I do like to end on time. Um, what gives you hope right now? Because this is some heavy stuff that we're working on, that we're doing in this community. What keeps you hopeful?
What keeps me hopeful, honestly, is like when I'm working with these women and I see a smile on their face or um, they're able to get through like a period of time where they've been struggling and they see a brighter future after going through something for a long time. So being able to see that, it makes me feel good. Like, yes, we are doing something. There is hope, and we are making a difference because everything that's happening in the world right now, just to even see a little glimpse or a little light at the end of the road right now is a beautiful thing. So when I see someone smile or say, "Thank you, you made my day," or even when knowing that I smile and it makes someone else happy, that makes my day. And so just seeing that other women are benefiting from the work that we're doing gives me hope that we're getting, excuse my language, that we're getting shit done, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. I don't know about y'all, but I found out two facts that I did not know tonight that has definitely set me back. I want to say I appreciate this. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being a part of BLM New Hampshire. You round out our team so gracefully. Um, and for everyone else, this will be posted on our YouTube. If you don't follow us on YouTube, please make sure you click the subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the other ones, I can't remember their names. But you can also follow AFSC on social medias as well to stay up to date with all their information and all the different legislature that is coming through. Thank you all for coming tonight. Since you did register, you are now registered forever to attend these. We do these, like I said, every third Tuesday of the month, 7 p.m. right here. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.